And don't worry about the presentation card. It says I'll be here for 20 minutes. I've timed this a couple of days ago. It's only going to be like half that amount of time. Okay, here we go. I want to again thank promoter Shelton Drum and the entire convention staff, especially Andrew Mansell and Rico Renzo, for all their ongoing assistance and support. Shelton loves inkers and the quality work they bring to our medium. And this is why we can annually and proudly call Heroes Con our home show. My name is Bob Almond, and I've been an ink artist for over 2 decades. This alone doesn't necessarily make me special, although any longevity in this business is something to applaud, I guess. Like most of us, I do this because I've always wanted to work within the medium and industry of comic books more than anything. I think I can speak for the inking community when I express that we don't do this for the money, but for the love of it. And with that dedication, we often seek motivational rewards of satisfaction and recognition and respect from our fans, our community, and our peers. Regrettably, some of this began to fade over a decade ago, and ink artists began to notice. For some publishers, both the policies and procedures changed, dropping the status of inkers by a couple of notches in the grand scheme of things. Inkers already had a lot against us by people not quite understanding what it is we do, as our craft was created solely within the comic book industry early in the 20th century, leaving no reference point for the outsiders to quite grasp. But by removing our names, our credits from some collection covers, solicitations, and other areas that once brought us recognition, we dropped way below the radar than ever before. The technology brought digital ways to simulate, albeit poorly, what we do for the sake of cost-cutting and expediency. Ironic being that inking was created for expediency. But inking had developed into an art form over time, a craft honed to bring aesthetic quality and storytelling enhancement. In most cases, this couldn't be accomplished simply in Photoshop. But by having us out of sight, out of mind, who would notice? Ink artists grumbled, but softly, within forums and mailing lists. In a business where sales had witnessed a vast downward spiral and inking had been demoted to more of a production skill, one did not groan too loudly for fear of being labeled as troublesome. Even when inkers were dropped from publisher comp lists that continued to reward the writers and pencilers. So there was talk and suggestions made. In late 2007, I formed the bare bones of the Inkwell Awards, not because I was anyone special, nor that I thought inkers were special or better than other crafts in the medium, but because someone had to do something positive, something that could act as an advocacy for inking, not an activism of opposition. We had to educate others about what we do, we had to promote what we do and who does it. We had to appreciate the best of who do what we do. If we did it, then who would after all? This formed our mission. We created a website to be the ultimate resource for all things inking. And we added measures like the compliments program so that the Hall of Fame award recipients like Joe Sinnott and Terry Austin can continue to receive hardcover collections of their work from our supportive retailer affiliates like Rubber Chicken Comics, Harrison's Comics and Pop Culture, Friendly Neighborhood Comics, and New England Comics. We did much more, including the annual awards presentation, in order to show recognition and reward the finest inkers of yesterday and today, all researched and nominated by our separate and independent nomination committee. No longer out of sight, out of mind, our efforts will hopefully lead to a status closer to what we once had. And by the way, while I don't want to be that guy who presumes to know better and tell others how to do their job better, with all due respect intended, speaking on behalf of the ink artists of our community, I'd like to put out a request to the prestigious Eisner Awards, our industry's comparable Academy Awards. Would you please consider returning the Best Inker category to your annual ballot, please? By removing it for reasons of supposed lack of clarity of what it is that we do, you do us a disservice and disrespect, combining us to a category titled Best Penciler/Inker or Penciler/Inker Team, which removes the distinction of our specialty and comes across like we're unworthy of a category. Can we get enough grassroots support from our community to actually affect change for the better? Perhaps we can work with them on this. I'm certainly offering. Speaking of prestigious, I want to mention the inclusion of 4 new Inkwell ambassadors to the team who graciously accepted to join us since the last ceremony and lend further credence, exposure, and respect to our mission. Phil Jimenez, Eric Bazaldua, and legends Jim Shooter and Joe Kubert. Now that is a development to be very proud of. I next would like to give special thanks to all of our members, associates, volunteers, sponsors, and supporters for all the hard work throughout the year and successfully getting us to this very spot. The largest assortment of Inkwell Awards members and associates collects at this one very show, this year being no exception, including Ambassador Adam Hughes, Mark Brooks, Cully Hamner, J. David Spurlock, the missing Ethan Van Sciver, contributors Louis Small, Dan Panosian, Henry Covert, Randy Green, and Ray Burke here in participating in making the ceremony run smoother, along with a presentation card that Ms. Inkwell passed out in a brochure done by designer Gina Curlew, who couldn't attend the show this year. And of course, we have committee members Jim Tornes, our book producer, who had to back out at the last minute, Mike Keller, our auctioneer. Where's Mike?
Had to go to his table.
All right. Where am I? Our auctioneer supreme, and Sarah L. Covert, our very own techno queen.
Yay.
We also have former members Tim Townsend. Tim didn't make it, did he?
I would say.
Bob Shaw, and Nathan Massengill, who I haven't seen yet. But anyway, many regrets to Stacy Aragon on our committee, who couldn't make it out here, but who's been consistently vital to our fundraising and operations. She informed me recently, due to serious family matters, she will need to take a leave of absence for the immediate future. From our Inkwell family, we extend our love and support to her. And lastly, I'd like to thank this year's Ms. Inkwell spokesmodel, acting as ceremony hostess, Haley Greenleaf. Oh, okay. I thought you were still up there.
See eye candy for the audience.
Absolutely. And our various volunteers on the floor. To all the mentioned, your dedication is appreciated, never taken for granted. For the record, we do not accept salaries in this official 501c3 nonprofit organization. All funds go towards various operational and promotional expenses. So considerable gratitude is additionally extended towards our generous donators for all of your essential fundraising efforts, which allow us to exist and operate. Special thanks to our most prolific artist donator this year, Roger Andrews, with several sketch covers. Special recognition must always be given to Joe Sinnott for his annual sketch offerings, this year alone bringing in several hundreds of dollars. Our second Joe Sinnott Inking Challenge, which aids in educating about inking with before and after image comparisons, brought in over $800 this year in art sales, thanks to all the participating artists. And this doesn't even count the record sales of our first Joe Sinnott Inking Challenge charity book. And I'd like to give special kudos to writer Ron Mars for his efforts in plugging the book and his shelf life column at Comic Book Resources. Another expense, but perhaps the most important, rewarding one of all, with mass community support, is the Dave Simons Inkwell Memorial Scholarship Fund for students in need at the Joe Kubert School of Cartooning and Graphic Art. This year's third award recipient is Christopher Sorensen. Dave Simons was an artist and Inkwell committee member who succumbed to cancer in 2009. A close friend of fellow committee members Bob Shaw and Danny Best, the scholarship fund was created in Dave's name with his sister Betty's approval. In a recent statement, she said, "Congratulations to the third annual recipient of the scholarship, Christopher Sorensen. Dave would be proud of the efforts of all of those that have made it possible for this scholarship to continue to be an annual event. Another deserving student has the opportunity to develop and perfect the art that Dave loved and devoted his life to. Thanks, Bob, for the opportunity, and I'm so grateful that another scholarship goal has been reached. Thanks to everyone, once again, for all that you do to make this possible. It's hard to believe that 3 years have nearly gone by since Dave passed, and not a day goes by that he is not on my mind and in my heart. I miss him so. I wish Mr. Sorensen a long and successful career. Most sincerely, Betty Simons." From myself, a sincere thanks to Betty, Joe Kubert, and Mike Chen at the Kubert School for making this gift a reality. And now, I'd like to present our award-nominated artist, editor, teacher, children's book writer, and the co-creator of the New Mutants himself, our keynote speaker, Bob McLeod.
Thanks very much. Fred, can you hear in the background?
I can hear you.
All right. Raise your hands if you know what an inker does. I think you know what an inker does. You guys are the 1%. Most people really don't know what an inker does. I really think a lot of editors don't even know what an inker does. I mean, they know that they cover the pencils with ink, but there's so much more to it than that. If you know anything about inking, it gets pretty complicated. So I'm very honored to be asked to speak at the Inkwell Awards today. I've always considered inking to be an art form, and I'm very proud to be known as an inker, and hopefully to be considered a good inker. Inking's been very good to me, and there are many ink jobs that I'm very proud of. But although most people know me mainly as an inker, and I've certainly done an awful lot of inking, I've never really considered myself primarily an inker. My first work in comics was penciling and inking movie satires for Marvel's Crazy magazine. I was always much more of a Mad Magazine fan than a comic book fan, and my major influence was more Drucker's work for Mad. I wasn't even aware of his early comic book work in DC Comics until way after I started working in comics. But drawing a few pages for Crazy each month wasn't really full-time work. And being around all the other comic book artists when I was working in Neil Adams Continuity Studios made me kind of irritated that Marvel and DC wouldn't give me any penciling work drawing dramatic comics. They rightly said my figures were too stiff, and I didn't know much about visual storytelling. Because I'd never really given it much thought, I always preferred drawing funny stuff. But I made up my mind to prove to everyone that I could draw superheroes, and I started studying penciling intensely. I mean, round the clock, I was studying a lot. However, my world changed when Mike Esposito suggested I could learn inking much more quickly than penciling. And he let me ink some backgrounds for him over George Tusco and Iron Man. I constantly practiced getting control of the pen and the brush, and sure enough, a few weeks later, I was getting regular work as an inker. Now, this was back in the 70s, and they were looking for warm bodies, basically, to do all the pages, because they were expanding and adding books to their titles, and they almost doubled the number of books they were publishing, and they needed people to do all that artwork. So I was lucky enough to learn on the job, which unfortunately they can't do anymore today. But I also kept working for Crazy, penciling and inking the Teen Hulk strip, and a couple years later I finally started getting some superhero penciling work. People often ask me if I prefer penciling or inking, and I prefer to do both. But rarely I had time to do both, and I was constantly being offered inking jobs. I penciled off and on all through my career, but I did more inking than penciling because I was faster at it. I could make more money at it because I was faster, and because I didn't like other inkers on my pencils. If I couldn't ink my own pencils, rather than have somebody else ink my pencils, I'd rather be inking somebody else's pencils. So inking another artist is very different from inking your own pencils, however, because they do things you'd never think of in your own work, and either because you just don't know how to think like they do, or simply because you don't know how to do what they do. So I've been lucky enough to ink dozens of other inkers from many generations with a great variety of styles. Everything from John Buscema's kind of connect the dots breakdowns, to Tom Rainey's super tight pencils, from Gene Colan's kind of many shades of gray pencils, to Mike Golden's complex line drawings. And each artist demands different knowledge and skills from the inker. It's practically impossible to ink those four artists I just mentioned using the same techniques and methods if you hope to do them justice. I love inking, but to me good inking depends entirely on good drawing. And if the penciler doesn't supply it, which is often the case, then the inker needs to. Following bad drawing causes bad inking. Inkers who don't know how to draw are at the mercy of a weak penciler. And they often misinterpret what a good penciler is trying to do, which is just one of the reasons why inking is not tracing. Inking is an art, knowing where to put thick and thin lines, where to put rendering, where not to, what kind of rendering to put where, how to vary technique to render different textures like trees, ground rubble, water, skin, clothing, where to add blacks and lighting. It's a very complex business, far removed from simple tracing. There is some tracing involved in inking, of course, and on type pencils there can be a lot of it. But all you have to do is look at any artist inked by two different inkers to see what a difference an inker can make. Even over type pencils, the inker always makes changes for better and sometimes for worse. A gray pencil line and a black ink line are just two very different things. And when a penciler and editor are wise enough to allow the inker some room to really contribute some creativity of his own, real magic can happen. Magic like Jack Kirby and Joe Sinnott, Gene Colan and Tom Palmer, Neil Adams and Dick Giordano, Frank Miller, Klaus Janson, and John Byrne and Terry Austin. Imagine the magic we would have missed if Jack Kirby and Gene Colan had always just done their own inking. So people need to give inkers, value inkers so much more than they do, and give us our due. The Inkwell Awards are here to do just that, and it's high time. So thanks to Bob Allman and everyone else who helped organize these awards, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you so very much for doing this for us, Bob. I appreciate that. I want to take a quick moment to give special recognition of three brilliant people. First and foremost, Joe Sinnott. He's been our Hall of Fame namesake, and it's in our first recipient of it since 2008, but he's been to many our unofficial frontline ambassador by default. We want to honor him with what he deserves for what he's done to bring us attention, credibility, and esteem, and to be the nicest guy in the world while doing so. I'd like to retroactively, proudly, and officially offer him the title of Special Ambassador. We've all been trying to get Joe here for some time, but no such luck to date, so maybe next time. This unique silver Inkwell trophy will promptly be shipped to his studio in New York. Basically. This is Joe Sinnott, Special Ambassador, Inkwell Awards since 2008. Two other retired committee members, Nathan Mazaville and Daniel Best, although Danny actually dropped down to contributor status, so he's still around. But I wanted to thank them for their outstanding time served. I will post a blog entry on the Inkwell Awards website within a week for those interested in reading about them and their valuable contributions. And now, without further ado, I present our distinguished presenter, inking is sexy ink artist and hero of the day, filling in for the missing Ethan Van Sciver with my apologies, Mark Gearing.
Don't clap, I got plenty of time. Okay, so is everyone ready for the results? Okay. 2012 Ink Award results, and the winner is... Hello? Favorite inker. Favorite inker over the pencil work of another artist from 2011, cover dated Interior American Comic Book Material. The nominees are Mark Farmer, Rick Magyar, Matt Ryan, and Scott Williams.
Slow down because he's running the slides at you. Yeah, I'm having a technical problem.
Technical problem.
There's technical problems.
Okay, technical problem. We had slides to present the nominees, faces, and they were a sample of their work. Trying to upgrade from last year's inaugural ceremony. I apologize, it's not working. So,
Who can we blame?
yes. Why don't you read that again, just because I interrupted.
Blame Ethan, he's not here.
Oh, yeah. On rolling form, going on the wall. Board assistants?
Is it working yet?
You just don't have the right equipment, right?
Oh, okay. Favorite inker.
Talk to them, but I don't think-
Nominees are Mark Farmer, Rick Magyar, Matt Ryan, and Scott Williams. And the winner is Mark Farmer. Mark is not able to make it to Heroes Con, but he had the following statement. Now, he requested that I read this in a British accent. No. Wow, what an unexpected surprise. I'd like to extend a big thanks. He wrote a lot. He's British. I'd like to extend a big thanks to the Inkwell organizers and their ongoing efforts to promote the art of inking, as well as everyone who voted for me, fans and pros alike. Please accept my sincerest apologies for not being able to receive the award personally. Family circumstances back in the UK currently prevent me from doing much else than support my family and fit in work whenever I can. This award comes as a timely pick-me-up, especially when I look around and see how many top-rated inkers there are out there working in the comics biz today who could just as easily have won. I've been lucky enough to work with some of the top-rated pencilers over the years, and I'd like to think I've done my best to help them and their storytelling efforts at all times. Occasionally I've struggled with the work of less able artists and have been torn between sticking to the pencils as presented or trying to subtly correct any mistakes as I see them. I've always tried to not work against the penciler regardless of my personal taste, as I figure it's the editor's job to point out any artist drawing deficiencies, not mine. But it can be hard, and I hope I've pleased more people than I've upset. I'm not sure how my fellow inkers feel, as I don't get a chance to chat with them very often. But with the problems I have with the varying quality of paper, inks, brushes, and pens, it can be difficult to show your work at its best. The industry seems to be forgetting that this is a visual storytelling medium and that clarity should be paramount in writing, penciling, coloring, lettering, and of course inking. We're all aware that computer technologies in coloring, lettering, and scanning, when used to enhance storytelling, are fantastic tools, which makes it all the more disheartening to see them used without thought or suitable restraint. That is why it's great that awards such as the Inkwell are finding the Inker's Corner, as our work can sometimes get lost in the mix. Having grown up with black and white comics, I've always had a love of sweet line work, and I'm still an advocate of most artists trying to ink their own work. Whenever I see a tonic, I just look at the inking of people I admire, Bernie Wrightson, Mr. Redondo, Tom Palmer, and the greatest influence on my early work, Jolt and Joe Sinnott, to feel invigorated and inspired. I love having to ask, how the hell did he do that? Even as I acknowledge that I'll never be able to emulate their technique or style. I guess a special mention should go to my longtime collaborator, the storyteller, Supreme Alan Davis, who never lets his standards slip and makes sure that mine don't either. It's been a pleasure to work over his pencils for so many years, even if it can be a little intense at times. And I only hope that we can continue to work on the type of stories we like. They must be out there somewhere for many years to come. Once again, many thanks to the Inkwells. I'm truly honored to receive this award. Okay, second category, most adaptable inker, showing exceptional ink style, versatility over other pencil artists in 2011 interior cover dated American comic book material. The nominees are Scott Hanna, Jonathan Glapian, Mick Gray,
You can read the
Norm
credits.
Ratton.
You can read the credits too.
They do so many things.
Yeah, well, Scott Hanna.
Scott Hanna, Avengers Academy, Avengers, Rebels, Herc, Green Lantern Corps, and Amazing Spider-Man. Jonathan Glapian, Legion of Superheroes, Outsiders, Haunt, Batman, and Static Shock. Mick Gray, Batman and Robin, Jonah Hex, Green Lantern movie prequel, Abin Sur, and Green Lantern. Norm Ratman, Booster Gold, Brightest Day, Justice League of America, and Teen Titans. And the winner is Scott Hanna.
But I can't.
Well, thank everybody for the honor of this award. Bob said so much that I would have liked to have said already, actually. But it's one thing. It's actually really cool to see how similar a lot of our thought processes are when you talk to other talented inkers, and how a lot of us come from the same point of view. And the most adaptable deals with what Bob was mentioning earlier about respecting and treating every penciler you work with to respect their work as well as your own and bring something to the table. I've been really honored to work with many different artists. I love the collaboration of inking, and I really want to respect the penciler, each separate penciler, as much as I would like to be respected. Like Bob said, when I was penciling, I preferred to ink myself because I didn't want somebody else to mess it up. So I want to treat other pencilers the same way I wish I had been treated when I was a penciler. And obviously I'm getting recognized for this, and I really respect the Inkwell Awards because they're looking not just at like the Eisners as one particular team or one particular issue that you worked on. They're looking with at the whole body of your work, which is really respectful. I really appreciate it, and that's about it. So thank you very much.
Right. Where was it? Okay. The Props Award. This is the inker deserving of more attention to their work over other pencilers from 2011. Interior cover dated American comic book material. Yeah. Dave Beatty, Brightest Day, Doom Patrol, Flashpoint, Wonder Woman, and The Furies. Rick Bryant for Action Comics. Rebecca Buckman, Avengers Academy, Heroes for Hire. I should skip over my name, right? Me. Superman, Batman, Legion, Secret Origins. Scott Hanna, Herc, Avengers Academy. Doug Hazelwood, Teen Titans. Michael Lacombe, it's a Canadian guy. Batman Incorporated. Steve Lealoa, Fables. Jay Leistein for Captain America. Joe Rivera, Daredevil. And Marcelo Sosa for Astonishing X-Men. And the winner is Scott Hanna.
It's like the Grammys where they keep bringing out the Justin Bieber keeps going.
Yeah.
This is Justin Bieber.
Thank you again. This one too. Every one of these awards, I really respect all the other nominees. There's some real talent out there. I think everyone deserves a lot of attention. The Props Award is great because I think all of us have worked on, you know, not necessarily like the highest profile books, but we still put our heart and soul into it, and it's really nice to be recognized for, you know, some of the smaller things where it's a real family, where everybody collaborates together, and especially Avengers Academy was like that. I got to work with two separate pencilers on the book. We were alternating back and forth, and it was really fun to do the variety of both and still keep the unity on the project. And the editors, the writers, everybody were working together as a really close-knit family. So it was really nice to be appreciated for some of those books that you really care about that aren't necessarily on the front page all the time. So thank you very much.
Stay there.
He's good. Okay, the next one is the Spammy for favorite small press and mainstream independent 2011 interior cover dated American comic book ink work over another pencil artist, non-Marvel or DC work. Gary Erskine for G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. Todd McFarlane for Haunt and Spawn. Sal Regla for Magdalena, Blood of the Lamb, Mysterious Ways. And Dexter Vines for Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 9. And the winner is Dexter Vines.
The music coming in. Play a wedding song.
And I'm even wearing my 4-inch heels. Right, congratulations.
Hello all. I would first like to thank the Inkwell Awards and everybody who voted for me. I really love working on the book. The artist George Junti, one of my best friends, so it's always fun, you know, to work with, you know, a good friend, a good artist, and then also to be recognized for it. So I really appreciate it. And just the Inkwell Awards in general, I love, you know, that they bring attention to the art of inking. You know, I know a lot of pencilers in the business, they appreciate a good ink. So, you know, when they get one, they try to hang on to one. So it's definitely good to know that and, you know, and to appreciate it. Now, if we can just work on the Eisners, you know, to recognize us as well, you know, that would be also a great thing. So keep it short and simple. Thank you again.
Next up is the All-in-One Award for favorite artist known for inking his/her own pencil work in 2011 interior cover-dated American comic book material. Jordy Bernay for Jonah Heck's American Vampire. Cliff Chang for Wonder Woman. Sorry. Francis Manipool for Flash. Terry Moore for Rachel Rising. Stan Sakai for Usagi Yojimbo. J.H. Williams III for Batwoman. And the winner is J.H. Williams III. Jim could not make the show to accept this award personally, but he made the following statement. It's short. It's an absolute honor to have garnered this unique award. I thank all who voted for me. It's this kind of acknowledgement that many others deserve but may not ever see, so I'm extremely grateful for this kind of recognition. Okay. Next up is the Joe Sinnott Award, a Hall of Fame designation for an inking career in American comic books of outstanding accomplishment, lifetime achievement, 25 years minimum, 2 winners chosen annually. And the nominees are Murphy Anderson, Dick Ayers, John Beatty, Frank Giacoa, Dan Green, Mark McKenna, Bob McLeod, sorry, Tom Palmer, Joseph Rubenstein, Joe Simon, and Scott Williams. And now to present our first, our first Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame Award recipient, Comic Art House art rep and former Inkwell Committee member, Bob Shaw.
You're supposed to wait. I'm still Dexter. You missed already. Yeah. All right.
How you doing? A couple weeks ago, Bob called me up and said, would you mind presenting Mark McKenna with the Hall of Fame Award? I said, I'm an art rep. Couldn't you find somebody better? And Mark's worked with so many pencilers over the years, it's crazy. He's worked with Billy Tucci, he's worked with Greg Capullo, he's worked with a laundry list of names that would be Hall of Fame qualified as it is. Mark is very deserving of this award. He's a good friend. He's a little insane. I think he did too much drugs during the 70s, put up a banana tail on a planet full of pumpkins from the Newton Light. I don't know. I think he dropped a lot of ass and went to Studio 51 way too much. But in all seriousness, Mark is one of those guys that just, he always gets the job done. He doesn't shortchange a page. The blacks always look crisp. They're always sharp. He puts his all into it, whether it's for a commission for a customer, whether it's for Marvel, whether it's for DC, or whether it's for his own personal projects. When you get something from Mark, you're getting 100% of what he is capable of. There's a lot of people in this industry that just don't take it as seriously as he does, or have as much love or as creativity as he does for this industry. A lot of people shortchange it. They'll toss in pages that aren't sharp. They freehand an elliptical, and they just don't take care of things the way they should, and they don't respect the pencilers. Mark will make an average penciler look great. He'll make a brilliant penciler look incredible. I'm honored to be introducing Mark McKenna to the Hall of Fame. He's an incredible friend. I'm honored to know him, and Mark, you're well deserving.
Thank you. Most people don't know.
Good night, everybody.
Well spoken.
Thanks. This is pretty cool. I'll give you a little story. 29 years ago, I was ready to graduate from the School of Visual Arts with my Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree, and I had no idea what I was doing with it. I had Will Eisner as a teacher, and as much, hey, there you go. This beautiful thing. Will Eisner was a teacher of mine, and while I loved the man, I felt like I wasn't getting enough of sense of the business at the time. So I actually got out of comic book, my mind, I started changing what I wanted to do. I became an animation major at Visual Arts, and then after 2 years of doing that and trying to draw 770 drawings for 1 minute animation, I think I had enough of that, So I went to Marshall Arisman, who was the chairman of the illustration department, and he said, well, what do you want to do? You're going to get your degree. And I said, I want to get back into comic books again. I'm just not sure where to go with it. He said, we have a teacher here who teaches perspective. His name is Sal Amendola. He's also a new talent coordinator at DC Comics. And I got to meet Sal. I think that's the best thing that happened with that $12,000 degree is I got to meet Sal Amendola, who basically would take me into the offices, and he would do classes on Friday mornings, I think once a month or once every other week. You guys remember that at all? Yeah. Yeah, Sal was great at that stuff. So what I would do, I would go in, I would live in Long Island, I would go in every other week to the classes on Friday, and then I would double dip. I would go to Marvel and show my samples from DC to Marvel. Yeah, I had to do that. And Elliot Brown was the kind of the new talent coordinator at Marvel Comics at the time. And Elliot, I had told Elliot I was taking classes at DC, and what he did was he would show my stuff to John Romita Sr., who was at the time the art director. Keep it down over there, will you please? So what happened, one day I was working in an art supply store after I had gotten out of school. This is what my degree got me, is an art supply job. And I get a call on the phone at the art supply store, and it's John Romita Sr. And he says, I'm looking for Mark McKenna. I said, get the hell out of here. You're not John Romita, Is this Bill? So he actually offered me a job to be a staff, a Romita's Raider, if you will. It was an art corrections guy that would work there. But I was living 60 miles out in Long Island, and they were offering me $4.50 an hour, which was, I guess, minimum wage at the time, So I had to pass on it. And he called me 6 months later, and I had to say the same thing to him. And the third time he called me, he says, I got to get you in here, or I got to take your name off the list. And I said, well, it's difficult for me to be able to afford this. And he said, well, how about if I get you some assisting work? I said, yes, of course I would do it. So when I got into Marvel at the time, I was there for about a year and a half. I was fortunate, of course, to meet a lot of guys I grew up with, and I got to work with Joe Sinnott at one point, even though I don't think he knew that. He had channeled in some of the backgrounds through the offices, and I got to work with him. I worked with Bob Layton, I worked with Vinnie Coletta, I worked with Al Milgram, I worked with Greg Breeding, I worked with a lot of guys who, some didn't teach me. Like I would hope that I would learn more from them. I was basically trying to understand the stuff and learn, but the most I learned from really was from John Romita, watching him work, in the offices. I learned how to drag a brush and a pen, and I was living up in in Queens at the time, taking the N train back and forth to New York, and I was living with the assistant art director, Tom Morgan, at the time. And when we worked up at Marvel, I ate crap there, basically. I was there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the morning until the security guard said, dude, you gotta go home. And I would take back the N train and go back to my apartment, and then we would work again until 3 or 4 in the morning. And I did this for about a year and a half because I was very devoted at that time. So, so then I got to, after that, I went to Marvel. After John hired me, they would never hire me for a job. I was always the art corrections guy. And I used to take my art supplies I used to take my art samples back to DC now, so I went full circle. So one time I went to go meet Joe Orlando. He was doing special projects editing up there, and it was lunchtime, and I actually went to go show him my samples. He wasn't in the office at lunchtime. Karen Berger was in the office at lunchtime, who at the time was starting a new Dr. Fate series. And I gave her my samples. A day later, she calls me up, says, we're doing a new Dr. Fate book with Mark DeMattis and Sean McManus. I said, DeMattis, McManus, McKenna, you got to do this, right? So I actually took the book on. It was my first regular job in comics. And I signed a contract. I was under DC for 4 years. And I stayed there until Marvel then called me back, and I started doing Doctor Strange. So, and I met my wife at Marvel Comics, and she worked in accounting at the time, and she knew how much money I didn't make. She still married me. 23 years with her this year. I want to thank the committee for having me up here. Thank you to Sheldon for putting on the awards, and thanks for the voting public. Thank you.
Bob left, so thanks, Bob. Congratulations, Mark. And now to present our second Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame Award, Art Inkwell contributor and the barbarian himself, Dan Pinocha.
Hi, everybody. Let's see if this mic works here. The winner, did we mention?
No.
The winner for this year is Scott Williams. Now, he can't make it. He's got some family issues. But I'm honored to accept the award for him. It's kind of a big deal for me. When I got into the business, in high school and grew up looking at Bob McLeod's work, and I even did backgrounds for Mark McKenna. True. I inked Scott Hanna. So I might be one of the guys who's talking about where he was in Inkwell and all that. It's a real honor to actually be speaking on behalf of inking, because I wouldn't be where I am without this job. And particularly when I first saw the work of Scott Williams, I was in the office all the time, like Mark, and they couldn't kick me out. I would literally be in there, and this would never happen now, especially with Disney owning Marvel. But I would be in there, be no security. I'd be working in the bullpen, trying to get pages done. And I started seeing Scott's work coming in, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with Scott Williams' work, and his Z line and the work with Jim Lee and Los Bertaccio. They kind of created their own style, and I was 21 years old. I'd never seen anything like that, and I would look at these Xeroxes and study them on the original pages and speak into Ralph Macchio's office and study these things. And I went so far as to take the originals and I would blow them up because there's so much line work and cross-hatching and little Z lines and all these things. I'd blow them up like 200, 300 times, and it just looked like pop art at that point because there wasn't even a face. It was just all a mishmash of lines, and my little brain's trying to figure out how to do that, mimic it, and doing all these things, and then all of a sudden everybody started really taking to that new line work that resulted in kind of the image house look, just like Marvel always had like a house look. With Joe Sinnott, basically his inking and that kind of style, and a mix between John Buscema and Jack Kirby, this kind of house look. The Marvel look and the image look turned into this look that was designed primarily by Scott Williams and defined by Scott Williams inking. In fact, a lot of times pencils would come into the Marvel offices and they'd go, well, we got to give it this look. So put some of these Z lines on there that Scott Williams did. Well, being very enterprising when I was young, I got one of these jobs and I took to that like crazy. And I was probably one of the first guys that would really mimic him and just basically copy the way Scott Williams inked. And I did that for a long time, and I got to that because I did well. But he really changed the business, and the guy will always go down, and he's still turning in top quality, remarkable work over all the best guys. And the last thing I'll mention is one time, I think Bob Harris, who's now the editor-in-chief of DC, was now he put together an X-Men issue where they got a whole bunch of different pencilers, and just like Scott and Bob and Mark were saying, Scott went in there and put his own slant on all these different pencilers for this one jam issue, but he still had like immense respect for all the styles. It was very interesting to see his range and how adaptable he was, but still gave his look his signature look. So, on behalf of Scott Williams, I humbly accept this. No, all right. I want the award. Did he send it to you?
Yeah, and I thought I sent it to you.
He is quite thrilled. He did email me.
Yeah, he did send a statement, which I thought I sent to Dan, so I might have messed up. But he had some important family obligations on the West Coast.
Oh, no, I know.
He could not get out here. So anyway, we'll get his award shipped out to him. Anyway, where are we? Okay. What is this?
That's what you gave me.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, Dan. Joe Sinnott made the following statement. Another year has passed and there are yet 2 more great anchors to be honored in receiving the 2012 Inkwell Awards Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame Award. Congratulations go out to Mark McKenna and Scott Williams, who are 2 equally deserving anchors that will receive this award. Many thanks to all the fans that voted for their favorite anchors. Good luck to next year's nominees, as I know there are many more deserving anchors that do a fine job embellishing the penciler's work and arriving at the finished product that we all get to see in print. Jolt and Joe. Woody, class of 2008. Can we have a round of applause for all our winners? There you go.
Thank you, Mark, for being the hero of the day, like I said. Anyone who wants to see Scott Williams' statement, we will have that posted on the Inkwell Awards results page in the next week, couple weeks, something like that. We now conclude the awards presentation and allow the audience and the press the opportunity to ask our award recipients, or even any of the speakers up here, any questions they may have and take photos. Following the Q&A, we will do the ticket drawing for the raffle tickets sold today for the Marvel Comics Herc original published art by Neil Edwards and ink signed and donated by Scott Hanna. You can also donate $15 following the ceremony to the Heroes Con Donation Drive charity book at our table at Artist Alley. Now for sale while supplies last, they have the results in it and all of our donation collections for the past year. Thank you all for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2013. Any questions? Yes.
I'm not sure how it affects any of you gentlemen, but like for instance, I'm a fan of Paul Pelletier, and I bought several pages to get on the recent run on the Hulk. The published pages, they're separated. The inks are done by someone else and it's separate from the pencil. And I've heard that's becoming a trend. How do you guys feel about that? Because I sort of like seeing them both together. So I own the published pencils, but not the inks.
Okay, I actually work both with on the actual pencils and on a lot of what are called blue scans, where I just get a digital scan of the pencils and then I have to ink it. Each of them has their own challenges. I absolutely prefer the real pencils because you get all the sensitivities, all the delicacy, and I don't care how good the technology is, the blue scans still tend to lose some of the detail, they lose some of the soul of the artist. Like you don't have the pressure on the page, you don't have the hand on the page.
Or the smoke. You don't have the smoke.
Or the, so I actually have to treat bloom lines almost a bit more like we would do finishes, where it actually is incumbent on the inker to really go back in and add what the computer lost. And so it's actually tricky, and it's actually a lot easier, I think, to do a bad job on blue lines. However, it enables me to work with like people from Spain or Brazil or Turkey that it takes too long to ship original artwork all the way from Turkey to Pennsylvania, or from Brazil to Pennsylvania. So instead of like waiting a week and a half and blowing the deadline, I get the pages instantly and can turn them around right away. But it's one of those hot or cold things. It's I know, especially for collectors, it's really tough because it's like, okay, wait, the ink version is what got printed, but the pencil version was what it was based on. So I know a lot of collectors are trying to get one of each sometimes, or they have to make a choice which one they want to get. I, as an inker, obviously, I've always loved the finished quality of the black line, how clean it is, how sharp it, and every good inker I know tries to treat the black and white image as the finished product. We know we're intending it to be colored after us when it's not a black and white book, obviously. Actually, Dan and I started doing black and white books, so what we did was the end product.
What was in the top?
Yeah,
You look like that.
Was that, I was just curious, does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, I was just general thoughts on the Chicago Trail.
Yeah, we don't like it.
That's a general, nobody likes that.
Yeah, it's not preferable, but it's common.
It saves on all that graphite on the vehicle, like you're in a coal mine.
It saves our racing run too.
Yeah, that it does. It's a lot easier to race.
Because there's a
We talk, the majority of collectors kind of like it, so
It's-
it's created a more and more quandary.
Right. It's tough, right? It's not going to go away.
Not-
It's,
It saves on shipping, it's become economics too.
yeah. Well, that's why the publishers prefer it, because they don't have to pay for shipping from one spot to another, and basically the shipping costs go on us.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, because I get this a lot from people who are non-comics that are like, oh, you're with a paper medium. My question is, with the higher resolution displays that are coming out for a lot of these devices, like the Apple and that, do you think that might lead to more of an appreciation for what you guys do in terms of inking, because there's more resolution of what can be shown in the differences for what that does? Because I know, as a lot of the artistic mediums, there's a lot of growth spasms with stuff for like the digital presentation of comics and that. Do you guys see the higher resolution stuff as that might be a positive or a negative thing for you guys?
Me personally, I don't. To me, it's all about that comic. For me personally, I know a lot of people are, get into the digital stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you can't bring it to a convention and have anybody sign it. But
I
it's.
think once it's out of our hands,
I think that's just more of a personal, thing. But I don't think that, really has any effect on how people see the artwork. Some people may.
Well, one interesting thing to me is that working on Avengers vs. X-Men recently, they now have a digital app that Marvel has that you can use your iPad or your smartphone, and they actually have on some pages, they literally have the pencil version of the page, the ink version of the page, and what's printed is the final colored lettered version. So that technology allows people to see part of the process, which does hopefully give some recognition to what the inkers do, what the pencilers are doing, and how much it evolves and how collaborative it really is. But the weird thing is, 5 issues of that have come out, and I've not heard anybody mention specifically to me that they noticed it. So, I don't know if they're using the app or if the app isn't clear. Like on a cell phone, it's kind of hard to see the subtleties of the inks to the pencils to the inks. On an iPad, I'm sure it's a lot clearer, but I haven't gotten any direct feedback yet, so I'm waiting to see if that's actually noticeable or not.
Sarah?
You guys, most of you all do penciling as well as inking. What is the strangest thing that somebody has commissioned you to do?
Rogue sitting on a toilet bowl.
I can't top that.
Yeah,
It's always like some kind of furry version. I'm giving up though. I'll draw somebody furry at this point.
I can top that, but I can't mention it.
Yeah, it's a family show.
And he's working on it today.
Okay. Mike?
I got a question going back to the digital. How about with a lot of the older stuff now getting put on digital and introduced to people, how about royalties to the artists? Has that ever been?
We're not interested in that.
Well, no, I know that their companies are pushing forward, but have they forgotten, or have they even asked the artists?
Marvel and DC are both working on programs to give royalties.
I've actually gotten
to be
digital royalties from
determined.
Marvel.
Oh, so they have.
Mark, you were going to say?
I just got an email yesterday from Talent at DC, because that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I got one of that too also.
You got that too?
Yeah.
Dan Didio and Jim Lee have instigated digital royalties.
That's nice.
Wow.
It's just started.
It's just in.
It's neat just to give the respect to you guys, because like I said, I think that's something they're really pushing. You're seeing in the comic shops that I think they should also keep you guys in the loop, because you guys have created a lot of this.
Well, the other thing is that, like on digital, they're still essentially publishing stuff we did 20 years ago, and it's nice to still get part of that. because it is
Sure,
work
I
every day.
agree, yeah, absolutely. But it introduces you guys to a whole new range of people.
Well, the same thing to me, because of things like Facebook, I get fan requests from people from other countries, because a lot of them are seeing work we did years ago for the very first time. So we're brand new artists over there, and it's amazing how the digital world is affecting things and bringing our work to more and more people.
Yes.
Has the impact of digital coloring affected how you approach inking now as opposed to say 25 years ago or so back when Bob started?
Yeah.
If so, how?
No more Zipatone.
That's
right away.
Yeah.
But Dan still,
actually,
you use it well.
Yeah, well, when I do the digital zip, a lot of times, since you have a computer, you can get so fine with that digital zip, it's almost a gray tone.
Yeah.
That's a mistake a lot of inkers make. And I want to make it look like it's the same Zipatone I used to
Even when we
use.
use the vertical screens, I mean, basically, you only could use between 20 and 40%.
Yeah, right.
Anything under 20 was too small, and anything larger was too heavy.
Yeah, well then it starts to congeal, I guess.
But I think that's the main thing. It's like you don't want to use something that's going to be obscured by the
Also the moire effect that's created on the computer.
That's true too. But the digital process advanced so much that it takes over what the Zipatone is doing and all kinds of other effects. I mean, I used to like doing all kinds of effects, special effects in the ink, and now it's almost a redundancy because the colorist can overwhelm that with a much flashier effect.
Or if they do a color hole.
They knock out the ink.
I've done all kinds of textures that I've seen a colorist like just delete and just throw something else in. And so it's fun. The penciler and inking team often will keep things minimal. I mean, I was trained, and I'm sure a lot of us were, when that art left you, you wanted it to read well in black and white with the proper contrast and grays and everything, as if it was to be printed that way. And if the coloring came in and enhanced it all better. Whereas now, there's almost no point doing all that work. And a lot of people do keep things very, very minimal in style, very clean.
And I still spatter stars the old-fashioned way. I hate when they just do. I hate when they just do these like light blue night sky, and it's like, wait, there should be black in that sky. And the only way to ensure that there's still it actually doesn't ensure because a lot of colors still knock it out.
So good colorists will enhance without overdoing it, but some colorists it's like their ongoing portfolio. They want to kind of show off all these things they can do in Photoshop, and it can be too much, overwhelming, and it's like, look at me, and who knew there was an inker in there somewhere? But like I said, that's a minority, but I have seen that. I think some of us have.
Just like inking, a good colorist can
absolutely.
or save.
More so than ever.
Absolutely.
You all set?
Anyone else?
Yes, is ended.
Okay.
All
right. We're all set, and we'll do our.
Thank you.
We have a raffle drawing to do for anybody waiting for that.
With your award.
Thank you guys
Scott's got
so very much.
Thank you, Bob. Raffle?
Oh yeah, we're doing that next. Yeah, so the rest of these people.
Oh, they're here
So
for raffle.
Bob, can you get it, Bob, get it this real quick. Hang on. I think I might be
Picking out.
I try to avoid
Scott needs one more
20 years of dating time, so that's $1 more
Get in there.
So I'm gonna take my pen. I don't know, I'm thinking about maybe back or
I had Gen Con big one. Sorry, I didn't mean to trip you.
Thank you.
Richard, Bob, very nice speech.
Mark told me yesterday that you were like making sure you can be here. And I was like, oh, so honored.
Oh, yeah.